All right, this is an interview with Mr. Jim Mach. The date is April 26th, 2016, is that correct?
That's correct.
This is the second in a series with the Independent Record, the Chewelah Historical Society and Museum, the Walt Goodman Museum, and with KCHW Radio. We are at KCHW radio station in Chewelah, and my name is Don McLaughlin. So,
I have one correction. Today's the 28th.
today's the 28th. See?
I was going to say.
Jim, I want to thank you for sitting down with us today and talking to us about your life. And we know you've been in Chewelah quite a while. First of all, tell us your whole name.
Jim Mach.
Jim Mach.
Yeah.
No middle name.
Oh, you want the
Yeah.
James Vernon Mach.
James Vernon Mach.
Okay.
And where were you born?
In New Prague, Minnesota.
New Prague. And how long did you live there?
Till I was 18.
18 years old.
Yeah.
And that's when you went to military?
No.
No?
I went to college on a football scholarship. It's kind of funny. My dad says, "What are you going to college for? Get a job." So I went to college for 2 years. Found out I wasn't going to make it in the NFL. Joined the Air Force. My dad says, "What the hell are you getting out of college for? Stay in and get your job."
Dad kept you honest,
Yeah,
huh?
so I joined the Air Force, and at that time they had a cadet program. If you passed it in flying training, you were commissioned as second lieutenant, and if you flunked out, you stayed in as a corporal.
Oh.
So
There was a lot of incentive to do well in
Yeah.
the training. And what's your birth date?
May 19th, 1934.
And 2 years of college, and where was that at?
Mankato State.
Mankato.
Now they call it Minnesota State.
Yeah. What'd you play in football? What position?
End. In those days, I was the right end. Nowadays, they have the tight end and
Yeah.
spread end and the slot.
But you were the big guy they
I
were
was
throwing
the
the
right
ball
end,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, over the line.
Played both ways,
Huh?
both the offense and defense. As a freshman, the starter got hurt, and I got put in on the homecoming game and made a spectacular tackle, and they left me in the rest.
Oh, they said, we got to have this guy from now on, huh?
Yeah.
Well, good for you. And so you went into the service, and where was your training at?
Harlingen, Texas. Well, first of all, you go to San Antonio for basic. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the Air Force goes there. Mm-hmm. Then Harlingen for navigator training. That's right on the border.
And when did you start flying?
When I got commissioned, that would have been in 1953 in Moses Lake.
Okay. And so, you were a navigator?
Navigator.
And so, what was the first aircraft that you crewed on then that you were the navigator for?
C-124s.
Okay.
Those are the big shakies at Moses Lake.
Okay.
They aren't around anymore. They have the C-5s and C-8s.
And so, what year did you go into the Air Force?
1954.
54. And you were flying as a navigator in training missions. Were you deployed to other countries before?
Yeah.
Okay, where'd you go?
Out of Moses Lake, Moses went to Argentina, the North Pole, Germany, Japan. I didn't go all the way around the world. I went to Cambodia on that side and Iran on the other side, but that stretch in there, I didn't get to go all around the world.
Yeah. And on the aircraft you were flying, you were the navigator.
Yeah.
How many of the crew were officers on the ship?
1, 2, just 3 of us. Pilot, co-pilot, navigator.
And then you had enlisted personnel.
Loadmaster and
right.
flight engineer. And in those days, the first couple of years we even had a radio operator.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you were in your early career with the Air Force, when did you first hear about Vietnam? When did the chatter start about you guys going over to Vietnam?
I didn't do that for years, because I got transferred from Moses Lake to Germany in 1960. And I was there from 60 to 64.
And that was
and
Cold
even
War
at 64, we didn't hear anything about Vietnam.
Yeah. It was Cold War stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In Germany, we were spying on the Russians.
Right.
That's what I was doing.
Right.
The U-2 got caught and shot down.
Yep.
Somebody had to take their place, and we did that.
That was Powers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't go over Russia like he did. We just kind of did the borders, and we had about 10 people in the back end.
Yeah.
None of them spoke English. They all spoke Russian.
And they were listening? Were they actually
Yeah.
trying to intercept?
Well, we did little crazy things, like we'd spire up over Frankfurt, Germany, and there'd be a B-57 that spired up with us. And he'd take off into Russia someplace, and they'd launch or something. And the guys at the back ends would just listen to see what their air order of battle was.
I see.
What was going on there.
So
we did that. We went out of, mostly out of Turkey and Iran, too. In those days, Iran was our buddy.
Yeah.
We flew out of there a lot.
Yeah. And it was a cat and mouse game with the Russian military.
Oh, yeah.
And their
I don't know what happened. About a year before I got there, one of them got shot down. For some reason, he straight into Armenia. So, and what was funny about it, the Russians returned the whole crew, but none from the back end. None of the back end people were returned.
I'll be
Their
darned.
bodies. Kind of weird.
Those were the Russian speakers.
Yeah.
And they kept them.
Yeah. I mean, they were enlisted airmen, but they were all Russian background.
Right.
Or Russian speaking.
Yeah. And they had defected to America, or were
I don't know
American
how they got in,
Yeah.
They were probably American citizens, but just had a Russian background.
And then when did you first get news about going to Vietnam?
Well, after Germany, I got stationed in Mississippi. And I said, you can't send me to Mississippi. There's no navigators there. Yeah, this is year one. You're the base navigator. You had to keep all the other guys that were teachers. They were instructors. They were traffic control is what they taught. But some of them were on flank status, and we had to keep them current, getting like 4 hours a month. And I found out about Vietnam. One of the pilots I worked with had come back from Vietnam. And they were called, I forget what they called them, but they were C-47s hauling people all around. And his name was John Toth, and old guy. He was old even at that time. And he said, hey, there's a war going on over there. You better be careful. So anyhow, in 1969, the hurricane came through and knocked everything down. And the personnel section was out of business.
This is in Mississippi now.
In Mississippi, it was the Keesler Air Force Base. And I had gotten orders to go to Vietnam. Well, I didn't know this for 2 weeks because the personnel got all displaced there. So I came back and finally got there. Hey, you're going to Vietnam. Oh, okay. And you're going in gunships, AC-130s, but you got to go train in Lockbourne, Ohio, in AC-119s. They weren't going to waste any airplanes training people, so they trained in the AC-119s. And you're going as a navigator, fire control officer, and basically what the navigator took you to the target. Once you got on the target, we just kept going around the target and firing. And I ran the fire control computer, and I'd select whether you're firing off the TV, you're firing off infrared, you're firing off a black crow or whatever it was. And that was it. And I did that for a year. And during the time, we sent back, and I was on the flight test crew when we put on the 105 millimeter there. So the problem was we only had 20 millimeter and 40 millimeter plus the Gatling gun. And we had to fly like 5,000 feet. And we're getting our ass shut down. So, okay, let's get the 105 millimeter. Now we can go up to 10,000 feet.
Okay.
Give us a little more latitude because
Right.
we were losing airplanes. And I was on the flight test crew for that. And then I went went back and finished my tour, 117 missions. And then after that, I got back to Florida and stayed in the gunship business, training people coming in. And then I got out of service, 20 years. Then I came to Chihuahua. And the reason I came to Chihuahua, because when I went to Vietnam, the family stayed here.
Okay.
And when I got out of service, I wanted to stay in Florida. I liked it.
Yeah.
And I would have been selling real estate.
Yeah.
All my buddies were selling real estate.
Yeah.
And the family said, no, we're going to Chihuahua.
Huh.
Because my in-laws were still alive, and
Yeah.
I go back there.
Now, your wife was a Chihuahua girl?
Oh, yeah.
She was born and raised?
Yep.
And what was their family name?
Newberry.
Newberry. So you're related to John Newberry?
Yeah.
Okay.
He would be my nephew.
Okay. And so you decided that you and your family would settle out here in
Yes,
Chihuahua
yes.
with the extended family.
Yep.
Yeah. And you got involved with the community in a very big way after you came home from Vietnam.
Kind of, yeah.
You were retired military, and you got involved with the Catholic Church and with all of the service groups here in the community. You worked for a while. You were the president of the Historical Society after Walt Goodman.
Yep.
Right. And then tell us about your other activities here in Chihuahua, the veterans activities.
Well, okay, first of all, when I got out of service, I used the GI Bill to get my teaching credentials.
Okay.
Because I just can't, sit around being nothing. So it's kind of like, not what you know, it's who you know. I played softball with Randy Alvo. And Randy Alvo was the principal at Springdale. Grade school principal, mid-school principal. And I'm going to Eastern, and this is 1975. And I had some other college. I went to the University of Maryland and Omaha while I was in sabbatical. But I didn't have teaching credentials. So I was finishing up that year to get my teaching credentials at Eastern. And Randy says, we're playing softball. Hey, why don't you go interview for a job? The driver's ed instructor at Springdale quit. I said, I'm still in school. I haven't even graduated. He said, well, when are you going to graduate? In August. Well, school doesn't start till September. Go talk to the superintendent, which I did. And he says, do you have credentials to teach driver's ed? I says, no. He says, could you make it up at night school? Oh, yeah, I can do that. And we also need a wrestling coach. I never wrestled. I played football, basketball, baseball. I never wrestled. Well, could you get trained to be a wrestling coach? I said, yeah, I can go to night school. I can be a wrestling coach. Well, yeah, but driver's ed doesn't start till spring, and wrestling doesn't start till winter. You do that, and you're hired. So I got hired, and basically went in the mid-school. Mid-school and high school, I had some classes like 8th grade math and 8th grade social studies. High school, I had American history, driver's ed. Anyhow, that's how I got started teaching at Springdale.
Great.
Well,
And did you retire from the school
yeah,
system?
20
too?
years. 20
Wow.
years in the Air Force, 20 years at Springdale.
Wow. That's great.
Yeah.
And
But as far as you asked me about the veterans organizations, my father-in-law, you had to know my father-in-law. He was a good recruiter. Mm-hmm. He'd get these guys to sign up for the American Legion and the VFW and the Knights of Columbus and all that stuff. And he was so much on your back, people would sign up just to get him off his back. And that was me, Okay, Jack, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I got interested in all those organizations. And
great.
Walt Goodman is the one that talked me into Historical Society, though. He said, Jim, I'm getting out of load here. You take that over. And I said, okay. And I did that for probably 6-7 years.
Yeah. Well, there's never been a historian in Chihuahua like Walt Goodman.
That's right.
He was an amazing guy. I never did know the man, but in the research that I do in history, I run across his name and Chihuahua synonymous, and he wrote most of the things that we know about the history of Chihuahua. So I wish I would have gotten to know him, but we named the museum after him,
Yep.
and that's a fitting tribute to him, I believe.
Yep.
And you've always been involved with veterans-related resources like VFW. Tell us about your work there.
In the VFW, the biggest thing is looking out for veterans in need. You know, they don't know how to file a claim for in-service disabilities, or they have trouble making rent payments or utility payments because they're down in, you know. But we've got a fund, I don't know if you know about it, went through the Stevens County auditor, and we go there. We have to do the paperwork to prove they're a vet, to prove they have need. Right. We send in the paperwork up to the auditor, then the county commissioners meet, and they'll approve anywhere between $500, $600, $700 to pay a utility bill, to pay a mortgage, or whatever.
How do you go about proving that someone is a vet?
They have to have a copy of their discharge paper. DD 214 is what it's called. Yeah.
And so if they don't have that currently, can they reapply and get it?
Yeah, we have, there's a depository in Kansas City, and we have paperwork to look up their records.
Great. And you're also involved with a lot of funeral services every year.
Oh yeah, the veterans do that, do both. The Legion and VFW get together, and Danicus will call us and say the veteran wanted a military funeral. Up until about 2 years ago, we were the only source for folding the flags, presenting the flags, playing taps, firing the rifles. In the last couple of years, the first choice of Danicus, or any funeral martyr, is the National Guard in Spokane. They have honor guards in there. If the deceased was in the Army, it's the Army. Deceased was in the Navy, they get some Navy people. In fact, this Saturday, there's a Navy honor guard going to Pioneer to let's see, Bob Hurst. Bob Hurst is being buried there.
The family requested that we open the museum for them in the afternoon.
Oh, right.
So we're going to open at 3 o'clock and let the family come down.
Yeah.
A lot of them haven't been in the museum for years, so that's going to be a cool thing. And you help make arrangements at the Catholic Church, I know, for certain things having to do with the funeral services.
But not so much the funeral. I mark the graves. Somebody calls, somebody's going to be buried in 115-1 or something, and my job is to mark the boundaries of that 4x8 plot. Yeah. And I cut the grass.
And why'd they take the trees down up there? Did the wind blow them over?
No, they wanted more burial plots.
Oh, yeah. Right.
They were right where people were going to be buried, and they figured instead of moving out into the wooded areas there, they had some places if they took the trees down.
And they had to pull the roots out and everything.
Yeah.
That both the Pioneer and the Catholic Cemetery have been there a while.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
They both offices suffered a lot of vandalism.
Yes.
I think it was last week.
Oh, really?
Somebody called me. The Pioneers got hit pretty bad. They tipped over about 3 or 4 tombstones. About 2 or 3 years ago, they hit the Catholic cemetery.
Yeah.
One of the statues of Mary got.
I remember that. Yeah, the Yeager family got pretty upset about that. We've got quite a few buried up there. Yeah. And, it's a tough thing because that cemetery is tucked away on that side of the hillside and doesn't have anybody with eyes on it on a regular basis. So it's an easy place for vandalism to happen. Yeah. But hopefully we'll find out who's doing that and put a stop to it. But it's kind of sad that we have to guard our own cemeteries to keep vandalism from happening, but it does.
I don't see how people get a kick out of doing something like that. It just,
No, I don't either. It's not right, and it's something somebody needs to learn. You know, the Eggers make sausage, so we don't have to talk to them to let them know what's going to happen if we catch them in the family grave. I was going to ask you about some historical things about Chihuahua, just questions that if you have heard anything or talked to Walt about.
Yeah.
Walt wrote a book about the history of Chihuahua. His niece, Barbara Swanson, was
Yes.
our curator for years.
Yes.
And she, at the time of her death, was adding photographs to Walt's book.
Yeah.
So the Historical Society wants to continue that legacy and get another version of Walt's book published with photographs in it. Because with the digital age, and we have everything digitized now at the museum, we can easily put photographs to go with the stories that Walt had written. So that's a project a lot of us in the community are looking forward to completing. But one of the things I was going to ask you about is Walt owned property out at the old St. Francis Regis mission site, out Rolly and Janet Goulet's place across the road. He owned that hillside up there.
Yeah.
And at one time, he told people that there had been a Catholic cemetery on that hillside that was related to St. Francis Regis mission. And that would have been, St. Francis Regis served the Indian community, what we call the Métis people, which were retired French and Scott traders from HBC, and they had Indian wives. And there were 70 families of that parish in the 1840s. This is going way back. Mm-hmm. And then when this part of the world was settled in 1883, they surveyed Eastern Washington. And at that point in time, we believe the Métis people either moved to the reservations or sold their land because it did not coincide with the new surveys. So in order to homestead a place, you had to have something that was confined within a 160-acre plot. And a lot of their farms overlapped that. But did Walt ever say anything to you about St. Francis Regis, or do you remember when you were involved with the society?
Now the thing about it, my wife was born,
Yeah.
she's 82.
Right.
So she may remember more of that stuff than...
Well, we're going to have to bring her in one day and get her interviewed too. We got to.
I think if you're looking for history, I didn't get it in 1974. She was here.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, her family's been involved in the community for a long, long time, Newberry's, and so we'll get to that hopefully soon. We are hoping to have a long list of people that we want to interview, and we'll start with the oldest people first. But your experience as a military officer and being in combat, what's your take on America's situation right now and the wars we're involved in?
Well, I hate to say it, but the politicians make wars and the soldiers have to fight them. And regardless of what you believe, when you call on to fight the war, you're going to fight the war. And you come back and even going back and say, God, Vietnam was a mistake. Because I remember saying, if you let North Vietnam take over South Vietnam, you're going to lose Cambodia, Thailand, Laos. It didn't happen.
Right.
They come back and they talk about Afghanistan and Iraq. We got to get Saddam Hussein out of there because he has weapons of mass destruction. We go in there and go, it didn't happen that way. And even in Afghanistan, our war wasn't with the Taliban, it was with
Osama bin Laden.
And I think Clinton had the right idea. Bomb their training camps. Instead, we invade Iraq, we invade Afghanistan. And we lost a lot of people. And now, okay, we shouldn't have done that. Now we're putting them all out. And as a serviceman, you say, what the hell would I do this for? You know what I mean? And that's just a personal feeling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe your son may think differently, or other service people may think differently, but that's just the way I feel.
I don't think so. He has said to me, we have a mission, and I do the mission. I don't decide the politics. And but are you seeing a different attitude in the veterans coming home now from the wars than you did during the Vietnam War, or is it a common experience?
What I experienced, the veterans coming out of World War II were happy as hell to join the VFW, the Legion, and they wanted to continue serving. The ones from Vietnam were not treated so well when they came back. Mm-hmm. Very few of them joined the veterans organizations. Very few, the young, I don't think we've got 10, 20 people in the VFW Legion from Afghanistan or Iraq. Mm-hmm. Most of the ones left now are Korea and Vietnam. Mm-hmm. No, I don't think they're that interested in joining, staying in the veterans organization. Mm-hmm. That's just a personal take.
Yeah. Do you see? First of all, let me ask you your experience with the veterans hospitals. There's been a lot of criticism about the management of the hospitals and the service that the veterans are provided. But what's been your experience with that?
Being retired Air Force, I don't have to go to the VA, okay? Because I have what they call TRICARE. And of course, I'm over 65, so I got Medicare. So I don't worry about...
So you can use regular hospitals, yes, or your doctor of choice and that kind of thing?
Because it's right here, instead of going to the VA hospital in Spokane. But all the men that I've talked to that aren't retired from the military, but are veterans, like 2 or 4 year services, they're happy what they get. Uh-huh. They were happy with the VA hospital. Right. And they couldn't understand what all the fuss was about. Right. And maybe it wasn't, maybe there were isolated incidents. I think that the veterans hospitals are trying to do what they think is right, you know, and they may be underfunded, undermanned, you know, because of these isolated cases. Well, I think that one incident in Spokane was where someone came in on an emergency and died there because he couldn't get in right away or something. Mm-hmm. You know, that's kind of an isolated case, but. Right.
Do you find that most of the personnel at Veterans Hospital are veterans themselves, like the surgeons and a lot of people?
I think so.
Yeah.
Just from talking to people that go there a lot.
And they prefer to serve the veterans, and they can make a lot more money working someplace else, but they choose to serve. That's been the feedback that I've received from other older veterans, that they said, I don't know what everybody's griping about. I love going there because they understand who I am and why I am the way I am. And that's an important thing, I think, for a veteran to have trust and support from the other people. Did you have any friends that were MIAs from Vietnam?
No.
Okay. You never had a close personal relationship with somebody who was taken prisoner?
Everyone of our parents that got shot down, they didn't have any survivors.
Right.
They just...
When you come down from 10,000 feet, you're not gonna...
They're not getting out of that.
Yeah.
We've had some survivors, but they got rescued. We had a man on the back end of a C-130, how the doors open like that, and he was strapped in there, and he'd look up for a AAA going up all the time. Mm-hmm. And one of them that got shot down, he was able to get out, but the rest of the crew went in.
He parachuted?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Got picked up by Jolly Green Giants.
Wow.
Yeah.
They went in and got him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the big Chinooks.
Yep.
Yep. And that was Special Army Rescue Company?
Air Force.
Air Force. Yep. It was Air Force. Yep. And they called them Jolly Green Giants.
Yep.
I rode in one once in Korea. It was one of the loudest things I've ever heard in my whole life. I took my earphones off for a minute, but they almost shook me to death. It was just boom, 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 boom. I can't imagine working in one every day. It was pretty hard. And how do you feel about the MIA program since Vietnam? Is there any bitterness with you about?
They haven't been making the news that much lately. Every once in a while, you read something where they found another body or something in the jungle someplace or other. But I think people are sincerely, the ones that are tasked to do that are really trying to find out the ones that are missing.
The politics that veterans get involved in at some point after their experience in war can be very diverse, just like any other civilian population. But do you find that Vietnam veterans have a tendency to vote a particular way or get behind certain causes?
Well, the two that stand out in my mind are Kerry and McLean. Okay, Kerry, I think he was on a boat and he came back right away and said, "Hey, that war is not worth a damn." Mm-hmm. And of course, McLean was a prisoner of war, and he said, "Oh, we did, we were doing the right thing." So I think it's each individual.
Each individual's experience or perspective that they gain. Mm-hmm. How did you feel about people protesting the war? How were you treated when you came back?
I didn't experience that, because I just traveled in civilian clothes. Most people did. You don't travel in uniform. But no, I never experienced that. But I didn't think you may not have thought the war was right, like Jane Fonda. Mm-hmm. I think she was way off base. Mm-hmm. She may have protested the war, but she shouldn't have gone over there. And the rumor was, and I don't know if it's true, that when she was going and talking to the POWs, one of them slipped her his Social Security number. She was get it back to the United States and to let the family know they're still alive. And she gave it to the North Vietnamese, and he got tortured. But Jane Fonda is not a fan of Vietnam veterans.
Yeah, a lot of the veterans have a bumper sticker that says, "I'm not fond of Jane." But I met Henry Fonda and actually interviewed Peter Fonda. I never did meet Jane, but I know that my veteran friends that were in Vietnam are not fond of Jane. The other activities that you've been involved in Chihuahua, you listed a number of them. Would you tell me again the organizations that you were part of and what you served?
American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Chihuahua Historical Society, Lions Club. I was on the city council for 6 years. I missed something? Oh, Knights of Columbus. Yeah.
What drives you now? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Just the ability to get up. Sometimes that first step is hard to do with all that arthritis stick going in, but yeah. Somebody says, if you want to live long, keep moving. I keep moving damn slowly, but I'm moving.
Well, we want to thank you for your service and taking the time to talk to us today. And you've done a lot of wonderful things for our community, and it's been an honor to talk to you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Okay, that's a wrap. This was Jim Mach. It is April 28th, he reminded me so aptly. We're at the radio station, and we do have in our presence the editor of our local paper, the Chihuahua Independent, and Scott Schlopman, the director of KCHW. This is the second in the veteran series. It's actually the first video on the veteran series. So for the Chihuahua Historical Society and KCHW and Chihuahua Independent. Thank you.